Ladies and gents, a huge welcome back to you all to a professional diploma in digital marketing and SEO. Today we'll understand the position of ads and how that is determined, and obviously get to know about the auction system and how that all works and integrates with different businesses. Then we'll also have the opportunity to get to play around with various types of ads and discover non-keyword targeting options. As I said earlier on, this course more specifically will be focusing on Google, but even with the other search engines, the principles would be very similar and can be transferred across to our current understanding. You would just need to get used to the different interfaces that come up with these platforms. So before we start off with coming up with different campaigns, let's have a look at what a campaign actually looks like and how it's structured. We need to firstly be aware of two different levels, the campaign level and the ad group level, and then of course obviously the ad level. Now what does that exactly mean though? Well, when we create a campaign, there are some things that you would set aside to apply to the different ads within the actual campaign itself. That would be the location, so where the ad is going to be shown, the language, the budget, the bid strategy, which is something that we'll be looking at shortly, and obviously the type of network and the dates of the campaign. Within your campaign, you would have different ad groups, which quite literally is groups of ads. And here you would set your targeting, your audiences, and the devices that you would like to target on using. Now, when it comes down to the ad level, here you would generally then, of course, add your copy and your visuals and all of that we spoke about in the previous lesson. So that's where that would generally be applied. There are a couple of things that we need in order to be able to actively run an ad or build a campaign. So let's find out what they actually are. Now, before we panic, there is nothing too major, so don't worry. First of all, we need to simply have a business email address. Now, that's quite easy to set up. Then you'll need a business website, which is a little bit more work, but also very easy to actually set up. If you don't have one, you can still create ads with smart campaigns, but you will want to actually know exactly how you can benefit from the full experience. And that's obviously where a website becomes quite necessary. And I mean, it actually makes sense as well. You would want to navigate people to your website with your ads. So it all just makes sense from a funneling perspective. Then last but not least, we need a credit card so that we can actually pay for the campaigns. But don't worry, you can do test campaigns and keyword searches without any charge in the meantime. Now, one thing that you need to actually be aware of is how the positioning in Google Ads actually works. It's not just as simple as picking a position and trying to decide on what you want to or where you want to appear for. There's a bit more to it, which is what we're going to cover now. The thing determining where you will appear, if at all, is something called ad rank. Ad rank has 6 components to it. Now, first of all, we have the bids. So basically, how much you're willing to pay for someone to click on your ad. And that doesn't necessarily mean that's exactly what you're going to pay in the end, but it's just an indication of your maximum budget. We'll have a look at some bidding strategies very soon, but just for now, just also understand that we also have a quality score. Now, quality over quantity is exactly what we need to focus on, just as we mentioned in the previous lesson. So exactly how the quality of your ad is presented to the audience is what we need to focus on. We'll look at how we can calculate that in just a minute too. Another component is the minimum threshold, and this refers to the minimum quality an ad needs to have in order to actually show up. We'll go through that in a bit more detail too in just a second. But for now, I also need you to understand that we also then have competitiveness as an element to focus on. So this basically means that if your ad rank is higher than your competition, your ad is more likely to show up. Another component is that we have the search context. So Google takes into account the terms that were used in that moment, the time of the day, the location, the devices, and so on and so forth. And then we obviously have the last point, that is the expected impact. You can also add so-called extensions to your ads, which we'll go through in a moment. So Google tries to determine how much of an impact these and the format of the ad in general would have on the performance. So basically trying to figure out how well your ad is actually going to perform. Now, these extensions are quite easy to get a hold of and even easier to actually install. So keep them in mind and maybe jot that down in your notes as we progress. So let's get into the quality score a little bit deeper so that we can understand the different layers to it. This is essentially a component of ad rank. You have some control over how you see it in your Google Ads account, including the summary as well. A higher quality score can decrease your CPCs, which is essentially your cost per click. So that definitely is something that we would want to work on. But depending on your quality score, Google actually assigns a minimum bid on keywords. The higher your score, the lower the minimum bid. And of course, we focus on the maximum bids in general, but the minimum bid can really have an impact too. It's the lower the amount that you need to pay in order to appear for selected keywords. So how we can actually increase the quality score and in turn enable a lower minimum bid? That's a good question, right? That's something we need to focus on. Well, first of all, we need to have a score of around 1 to 10, and it all depends on 3 specific factors: the relevance of the expected CTR and the landing page experience. But what does that really mean? Well, ad relevance really just shows how closely the keyword or essentially search term you're bidding on is related to your ad copy. And then obviously how relevant the ad is to the landing page. So the content of the URL that you add to your, ad in this case, need to be quite well related to one another. Okay, very important to take that into consideration. Now, as we continue, we'll also understand that when we have that expected CTR figure, Google then is able to estimate how many users will actually click on your ad based on how your previous ads have performed. If you find that the expected CTR is below average, you might need to change the copy in order to get more people to actually click on your ad. It could be a signal that the copy is just not exciting or convincing enough, and that could be an indication that maybe the creativity of it needs to be played around with. And then of course we have the landing page experience. How user-friendly is your landing page? Does the content of it match the search terms? That would be the ideal scenario, as I'm sure you would understand. And all these 3 things, so the relevance, expected CTR, and landing page experience, make up your quality score, which then, as you know, affects your ad threshold. So how is the threshold actually determined? Well, first of all, we have the ad quality. The lower the quality, the higher the threshold, meaning you'll have a tougher time actually placing the ads. Then the ad position. The higher the position, the higher the threshold. Google is all about making the search results as relevant as possible with the best quality. Always keep that in mind. Google is very user focused. Then we have the user signals and attributes. These include things such as location, meaning the thresholds can actually be from different people depending on the country that you're in as well as the actual devices themselves. The topic and nature of the search is also a very important factor to take into consideration. Some topics may have a higher threshold than others. For example, if you're looking to buy a car, the threshold would be different than if you were looking for arts and crafts. And then finally, we have the related auctions. So the threshold of similar search terms to the one you're bidding on would be compared and taken into consideration at this point. So we have spoken about these bids quite a bit so far, but bidding on keywords or search terms needs to be a little bit more elaborated on in order to understand practically. It's a very important aspect to the strategy that we take in digital marketing and must always be focused on with a very close eye and a magnifying glass. And we can only do that if we stay in tune with the trends around us. So staying internally focused on our strategy will very much so be impacted by our the trends that are occurring around us in our own local and global environment. So please always do make sure that you think about those parallel. Your bids will make up a really big impact. So let's have a look at how the auction system actually works. So it all really starts off with the advertiser bidding on a keyword. So essentially selecting what the maximum is that they would pay for a keyword, which is essentially a search term in our case. Then, based on all the ranking factors that we discovered, Google then determines a winner amongst the auction. The winning ads then appear in the allocated positions, and when users search for something, the ad will show. And then, obviously, once they click on it, the advertiser is then charged for the search engine. Now, this is a very simplified version of how the system works. We already know that we need to consider a number of factors to show Google that we're operating at a high quality. But we need to think about more than just that, as we want to avoid just randomly bidding on any search term. We need to think about what type of keywords we actually want to bid on, and in what way. So let's start with thinking about picking the right keywords for our ads more specifically. So it all starts off with a specific process, and this process is something we call the keyword research, which is arguably the most important factor in a search campaign. We basically estimated what people will be searching based on the ads that need to be delivered as the answers to their queries. So think about it. If you want to get your product or service as a search result, what would you look for? And just as a side note, remember that you can't appear for every single keyword every single time. There are quite a few things to determine whether your ad actually appears or not, so don't get frustrated. One of the first questions to ask is whether you are going to be bidding on your own brand terms. Is there perhaps a separate branding objective and relevant campaigns involved as well? If so, then you won't need to worry about that brand. Are you expecting people to be searching for your brand due to marketing efforts? Do you know the current search volume of the brand searches? Are the competitors bidding on your brand? Are your branded keywords already an SEO focus? And by that I mean, are you optimizing your website for your brand keywords? Then we have generic keywords, which are essentially just the obvious keywords that someone would search in order to find your service or product online. So you need to try put yourself in the customer's shoes and think about how they would go about searching for your product or service. And go ahead and list as many keywords as you can think of, both long tail, so essentially long versions, almost phrases, and short tail, so shorter phrases that consumers might look for. If you're a dentist, you might try and think of some terms such as dentist near me, or where is the nearest dentist, and where is the nearest dentist to me. These are all the different types of phrases and search terms, keywords, whatever you want to call it, that users could generically look at. So you need to think of these generic ones as well as the more unique ones that could pop up too. Then you might want to bid on a competitor keyword. You know how you have your brand keywords. For example, Custom Comfort, our previous case study, might have the competitor IKEA, which is a really big household name that people would search for it, rather than the furniture only itself. So obviously it's possible if you say, hey, someone is looking for my competitor and I want my ad to appear when they put in those specific keywords. Your budget and offering compared to those competitors is what should determine whether you'll bid on a competitor brand in search. You could get yourself into a brand bidding war, so be careful here. Your competitor pushes up your brand CPCs as you push up theirs. And this could get pretty nasty, and you need to be careful, especially if you know that your competitors have a bigger budget than you might be able to start off with. And then if that's the case, you need to then back off, and hopefully so will your competitor do, which could ease the bidding war a bit. Many big brands do adopt a strategy around competitor terms, and as performance can be really good in some cases. Let's look at an example. Here I was looking for Trello. You might have heard about it before. It's a platform for organizations to organize their tasks and so on. The first ad that pops up, make a switch to Asana. The second one, Monday.com. It is so much better. The different wording that they're using here is so cheeky. It's a really cool strategy that they implemented here. In some cases, this could work, but in others, not so much. So as usual, try what works for you. And just as a side note, as we'll look for more examples throughout this lesson, welcome to marketing, the only professional field where we actually look for ads on purpose. So now that we've covered that, the last thing I would like to talk to you about is negative keywords with regards to this topic specifically. These are the words that you want to actively not appear for, as they could be probably a waste of your budget, right? You don't want them to appear in your keyword search. So you rather want to take them out and opens up some space for much better keywords. Common words would be things like cancel or cancellation or refund, then PDF template or news. In general, when users are looking for these sort of words, they want something more specific in mind. They're not willing to pay for the information. They're just looking for a free downloadable option. Okay, so we also need to keep that in mind. Then we have school, student, and exam paper. And finally, compliant, issues, and support. All right, that's really not going to lead us into the direction that we would like to be in. So we need to be very smart in what we include, but also what we strategically leave out of these keyword searches. There are 4 different match types. Some might say 3, but we've identified that they are exact, phrase, broad match modifier, and of course broad. This is where some might say 3, but they combine these 2 broad terms, and I'll break down each match in just a bit to help give you a bit more understanding of why they are identified as they are, and why we've separated broad match type and broad. Starting off with broad keywords, we have pure broad, which would be added to your ad group like this. If we stick to our custom comfort, for example, we basically add our keyword the way it's written. And then there's broad match modifier, which includes a plus before each word, as you can see over here. So the pure broad keywords cast the widest net over your campaigns. It will pick up related terms, but without an extensive list of negatives, you'll end up showing ads for irrelevant or at least 2 generic searches. And then we have the phrase keywords, which are enclosed with quotation marks, as you can see over here. It tells Google that triggering the search term for your ads needs to include those words in the order that you've specified them in. Any terms can be included before or after your phrase, but not in between, which is quite important to obviously note. And there is some dispute about the value of phrase keywords, as broad match modifier keywords can cover those terms technically. But my thoughts, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they offer cheaper CPC and a higher conversion rate, which leads obviously to lower CPLs or CPAs than your BMM keywords. Other times they pick up a lot of irrelevant traffic, which can be hard to actually sift through in order to find the quality. But they do have higher CPCs and lower conversion rates. So, like everything in this game, just test and see what works for you. Exact keywords are enclosed with square brackets. They serve ads when the exact term is actually entered, except they don't actually anymore, since Google announced that they can now match those close variants, which is quite a generic thing to say actually. All these match types that I've just taken you through now are meant to be match close variants, which questions the actual need for different match types. But for now, there is still a lot of value in including different ones. So all the keywords, not just exact, pick up on misspellings and plurals. So you don't actually need to worry about adding those unless you actually already have them in your account and they perform. So leave them in if you already have them. That should be totally okay. Okay, now that we're aware of the different match types, let's have a look at the different strategies that we can actually use in order to go ahead and bid on these keywords. Now, I won't take you through all of them because there are quite a few, but I just want to show you 2 for now so that you don't get too overwhelmed with too many different strategies. But essentially, these bidding strategies determine how you spend your budget. Do you spend less on some keywords or more on others? When do you spend more on one certain keyword than you would another keyword? So this can be automated as well, or it can be done manually. But it's important for us to actually understand the approaches from both sides so that you can actually justify the choice that you make when that time comes. So first of all, we have eCPC, which stands for Enhanced CPC. It will increase the CPC bid for what it deems to be a more valuable person to click on it and then convert. So based on the algorithms and history, it will serve the ad possibly in a higher position, getting that person's attention, and they are apparently more likely to convert then, right? And that's what the enhanced side of it would entail. If I sound a bit cynical here, it's because I prefer the manual approach to CPC. I have experience with all of the others, but to be honest, manual CPC I personally feel gives the best control with a huge account. It's very, very difficult to manage, and therefore it's got a lot of data than automated bid strategies, which can work quite nicely. Manual CPC is exactly that. There is no automation. You manually choose to optimize the bids that you have, giving you full control. Okay, so now at this point, we're able to create our copy, and we have a basic understanding of the keywords and our bids. So let's take a look at the types of ads that are actually available to us right away. So let's start off with search campaigns. Here what we have available would be text campaigns, and this is kind of the standard option. And then we have responsive ads. Here the text is being shown automatically, it rotates. I'll show you what that actually means in just a minute. And then we have call only ads for mobile. Okay, and that's more specifically for mobile. So this is what text ads would usually look like. As you can see, they pop up in the very top of the search results when you're looking for something. In this case, I looked for dog food, and this is what appeared. So you would have to actually write the headline, which can have up to about 30 characters. And then you can have the option of adding your descriptions. You can add up to 2 to 90 characters each. All right, so that's quite a diverse number of different characters that you can actually add in. Then we have responsive ads. Here you write up to 15 different headlines. You will have to write about 3, and you can write 4 descriptions, which is quite useful. Basically, what responsive searches ads do is that they combine the headlines and the descriptions with each other, all right, which is quite interesting as well. So people don't even need to go all the way into each link. They get all the information that they need from the actual headline itself, which can be quite cool. Now, so some of your headlines and descriptions need to be able to be combined with one another for that very matter though. And then Google will actually put them together based on the performance, and it will automate the process. So depending on your audience, the best possible version of your ad is actually shown. So Google is for the consumer, well, not the consumer, but for the user. Google are on your side in order to make sure that everything is represented the best way possible. And then this is what a call only ad would actually look like. So you would need to obviously have a contact number, as that's the point of this ad. It would be to get calls directly from the advertisement, and then obviously have the option of adding 2 headlines and 2 descriptions. This ad type is only available for mobile devices, and if you need to, you can write that in your notes just for reassurance. And it makes sense because you don't generally make phone calls on a computer, so it's not even something that you need to think about. Now, apart from the search ads within Google Ads, we can appear within tons of other locations too. So first of all, we have display ads, and these are shown across Google display networks. I will show you an example of what that looks like in just a second too. But before I get there, just understand as well that we have video ads as well, and these would generally be shown on YouTube. And then we have app ads, which can be displayed in Google Search, YouTube, Google Play, and on the Google Display Network as well. But let's have a look at some examples to show you what they actually look like, because the practicality of understanding a theory is always better than just a bunch of words. That's a little hint for your marketing strategy. Now, first of all, we have Google Display Ads, and please don't judge the types of videos I watch. I'm a huge fan of puppies, okay? Who isn't? In this case, the screenshot has been taken from YouTube, and this is of one of the websites that happens to fall within the Google Display Network, which is basically a collection of websites across the internet. The website owners can sell the space on their websites for ads, and there are generally a lot more variety in the type of ads that you can choose from, different image formats, and obviously placements. So in this case, it's on YouTube, and it allows you to reach audiences based on their interests, which can be pretty exciting. Here is another ad that I found on the Skyscanner website, and it's based on my previous browsing behavior. The SEM rush is placed right there. It's very attention grabbing. It really does just grab your attention, which is quite fun. And it has bold colors, which really helps it stand out quite a bit. And especially since the website is very neutral, it really does naturally catch the eye, which is quite exciting to obviously assess, especially as a marketer. Then we have video ads. They're available on YouTube and are also based on certain keywords that we can use. They are either shown right at the beginning, during the video, or after the video. And here it's very important to think about the viewing experience as well. So we want to make users watch the ad right from the start. As you can see in this case, the ad is 1 minute 51 seconds long, which is quite long for an ad on YouTube, but they can skip it after 5 seconds. However, you can see the caption in the subtitles that is being used on this ad that is quite captivating right away. It's the sort of hook that the advertiser is actually using to draw our attention into, oh, what would I've actually achieved if I had done what they are suggesting. So it is quite engaging, and they including this engaging aspect right from the start, which is quite captivating and obviously grabs me in for the longer duration in that 5 second skip option. Then we have app ads, which are basically apps which encourage users to go ahead and download your app. All right, as we said, they are available within the Google Play Store, as you can see here on the left, on the Google Search, as you can see here on the right, and on YouTube, as well as the Google Display Network, of course. They work a little bit different than the other types of ads, as I'm sure you don't design the campaign yourself. and you would understand that. All you need to do is submit information about your ad, then target your audience, and obviously submit your bid. The rest is automated to ensure the right people see the ad, and the rest is just fallen into place, which is quite exciting. Now, the last type of ad that I'd like to show you is the Google Ads shopping campaign, which is quite exciting, very great for e-commerce. As you can see here in the screenshot, these types of ads are more about marketing specifically to individuals about products rather than your whole business. Okay, they are also displayed on the Google Search Network. However, in order to be able to actually run these, you would need to set up an account with a Google Merchant Center. As this is something we'll be going over in Module 4, we won't be spending too much time on it right now. However, just know that it is necessary in order to get that to operate and obviously stand out the way you would need it to be presented to the client to be engaging. Now, what I would like to do and show you is something that we have mentioned earlier on, and it's the ad customizers or extensions. In this case, I have a screenshot of the actual Google Ads platform for you. As I'd like to show you what this would look like in order for you to actually understand, I thought, let me just show you exactly what you need to see in order to make sense of it. So this is a little sneak peek into what you can expect as you progress into your using it yourself, which is quite exciting. So first of all, what are ad customers? Well, they will let you put some variables into your ads. In the example at the top here, for example, I added a countdown. And the way it will be shown in the search results is about 5 hours left. So you pick an end date and an end time that your user will see this. So it actually does have some relevance. It's not just a bunch of words that have no meaning and are just trying to engage the customer's attention. It actually could have that 5-hour duration period. Another ad customizer you could add is for a keyword replacement. As you can see here at the bottom, this would basically replace your main keyword in the headline by the phrases that users are actually looking for. In this case, the ad is for car insurance. But if a user is searching for motor insurance, vehicle insurance, etc., the ad will actually change in order to match what the user is searching for, as long as the maximum amount of the characters is not superseded, in that case the original. So car insurance will be used. There are tons of extensions that we can actually use. Site links, callouts, structured snippets, call buttons, message buttons, locations, prices, apps, and promotions. The list goes on. So if you ever see any ad with some fancy, let's call it extra stuff, this is what happened in the background. So in the case on the left here, I have actually looked for Shaw Academy. And what you can see here are site link extensions. So apart from the usual ad, you actually see the course catalog, and the about section is also included too. Let's get to the last part of this lesson. We have spoken about keywords a lot, and these are pretty important as we want to appear under the correct search terms, right? But what about all the other advertising options that we saw that are not based on specific keywords? And we might want to narrow down who we appear for, rather than just appearing for the masses for a specific term. That's where our non-keyword targeting actually comes into play. So let's just quickly check that out. So first up, we can choose whether we want our ads only to be shown on different devices, so mobile or desktop. And then we can also differentiate by gender. If you specifically produce a product for men, why advertise to women? And then have a location. Right, so that especially comes in handy if you sell products or services that are only available within a specific region, or if you have a brick and mortar store with no delivery options. There is no point in advertising for people who can't actually purchase your product outright. And then of course we have remarketing, which is something that we have mentioned already. And in this case, we would actively try to show our ads to people who have visited our website already. So let's get into that in a little bit more detail, as this is a very valuable targeting method to set up properly. Remember which tool is tracking all the site's visits and actions to our website? Well, of course, it's actually Google Analytics. And please write that down if you didn't know that from the get-go. So if you want to make use of remarketing, you will need to link your Google Analytics to your Google Ads account, as Google Ads takes the information about who has actually interacted with your site from Google Analytics. And there you can set up different lists. Do you want to target anyone who has visited your site? Everyone who hasn't completed a purchase? These are very things to actually keep important things to keep in mind. Only people who have actually completed a purchase could be something pretty interesting to track as well. The options are really endless and really up to you based on the nature of your business. We'll speak about remarketing a bit more in the next lesson when we're actually putting together our full digital strategy. So I hope you'll join me then. It's going to be an absolutely valuable thing to know and incorporate into your business. Then for display ads specifically, you can match the site content, which means that you can choose which sites to actually place your ads on, whether it's content keywords, so the content of the site or the content topics, and you can also choose the specific placements, so specific websites where your ad would actually pop up. Not all are available, but it is based on what you add. Other suggestions will appear too. With programmatic buying, which is a different kind of display network, you would have a broader range of placements to choose from. But you're only ever going to be doing programmatic buying if you have a huge budget. So for now, we'll just focus on what matters to us the most. Then we have interest. So you can target people based on what they're interested in, which is why we need to get to know our customers so well. Think of your buyer personas. We have similar audiences, which are basically targets of people who match your site visitors or are, well, similar at least. And then we have finally in market, and that is a group of people who, according to Google, are ready to buy. One more thing to note about your Google ads is that there are some policies that we need to stick to. So always keep an eye out to your emails after registering on these different platforms. And that is it for this lesson. Thanks again for joining me. I really enjoyed myself and I hope you did too. And I hope that you're looking forward to the next couple of lessons that we have that lie ahead of us. I can't believe the first module is almost over. You're well on your way to becoming a digital marketing pro. See you next time for lesson 8. Take care. All right.